Hello, and welcome to yet another completely unprofessional interview. The show where I promised that this was just a name placeholder, but I am a lazy, lazy man. So therefore, it is going to stay this way until I change it. Um, Today, I have a very special guest, someone who, personally speaking, I've been hoping to get on here for some time, or even the Titter Pigs podcast. But since the Titter Pigs podcast has gotten busy, I decided for the month of September I wanted to get some people onto the OrcusDorkus channel here and see if I can reach out to some people that that I look up to, I enjoy, people that I want to talk to get to know better. And today I have a very special guest here, Pauli Kidd. Pauli, thank you for
Hi there.
traversing through space and time. How are things in the future? Um,
Tomorrow's lottery numbers are 21.
mm,
Actually, when we hit the year 2000, Gamer friends over in Melbourne, because they're like 3 hours ahead of us, they called
yeah.
to sort of um. Oh, it's New Year's Eve here, and then and we've gotten through the Y2K. It just goes to white noise. Like, yeah, very funny.
Well, I do appreciate you taking the time to come on here. I'm very excited and to talk about your career and a lot of the things that you've been involved in, things that you're currently involved in at the moment, and also to introduce people to you because I discovered you personally through episode 1 of your YouTube channel. And which I'll be honest is probably one of my favorite gaming RPG channels out there. I haven't been taken by a channel like this since I don't know if you're familiar with it, but with Bud from Bud RPG's Review, who does review of role-playing games. One of the things that I really enjoyed about it was obviously the positivity that comes through your channel, which is fantastic, and also the reviews that you started out doing. I walked away from these learning about games I wasn't aware of or games that I didn't know that I wanted to play, and they were short and concise. The reviews were poignant, and I walked away not just knowing about the game, but about your opinion of the game, but the game itself, which is very rare, especially for like me. I will prattle on for an hour and a half talking about a one-page game because I'll get sidetracked. I'll just blah 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 blah, and I need to learn to what's the opposite of verbose. Um,
Succinct, yeah.
yeah, I think so. I think so, or just or as my wife will say, tone it down a little bit. But no, the videos were fantastic, and as I started to progress, you also interject between the initial reviews you did. You talk about games, you talk about miniature gaming, but you started having these wonderful little anecdotes, about gaming. Some positive, some negative, but things that needed to be brought to the surface to discuss. And again, um, more something that I would much rather view on your end than in the trash dumpster fire of social media. To get a clear point and get a perspective without having 18 million people dogpile on someone regarding that, but but also these just, and also a little bit of history, which is great, which is something that we're going to get on because for some people out there who may be a little whose beard may not be as gray as mine, may not be aware of a lot of the wonderful things that you've been involved in over your career in the beginnings of not just the tabletop RPG games, but also computer games, which we can touch on if you like, discuss whatever you want. But excuse me, sorry. And for those watching, it's 6 a.m. here because I'm in California and Pauli's in Australia. So I'm drinking my coffee. I've taken my allergy meds because I'm dried out. So if I tend to, I apologize now. I'll edit it out later. I really won't.
I've got soft drink here rather than the traditional hooch I do on my channel.
But
I'm not actually an alcoholic, but it just seemed to be an Australian thing to do. So.
But yes, so enough of me, gushing and being and fanboying all over you. But But let's begin like how I usually begin when I talk to people that I haven't met before. Is what was your introduction into gaming? I mean, whether it be tabletop role playing games, miniatures, whatever the case may be. How did you get introduced to this wonderful hobby?
So it's all sort of intertwined. So I'm from Perth, Australia, which is on the west coast. For those of you who don't know, it's the most isolated capital city on earth. More than Timbuktu, it truly is. Strange little beach paradise. The beach is only ever 5 minutes away,
Hmm.
and associated, carnivorous and deadly things. But uh, when I went from primary school to high school, I was always like passionate about history,
Hmm.
and I guess there was kind of a family association. I never knew my paternal grandfather,
Okay.
um, because frankly he didn't make it out of Tobruk. So I had a huge interest as a young kid with that connection. I think with World War II, and particularly like the whole Western Desert, Rommel versus Montgomery kind of thing.
Hmm.
Wavell's 30,000, bashing the Bosch, hammering the Hun. But so I was always the 8-year-old kid that could tell the exact quirks of the DB501 engine. Uh, but and which is why I later ended up in the army driving tanks. But
Mm.
uh, my father was an architect and would take us over to Europe pretty often. So I'd run around castles and every armor collection in the entire universe, and I was completely passionate about it. But this also involved like running around Byzantine ruins and Ottoman Turkish
Wow.
ruins and all these sorts of things. So when I got to high school at the age of 12, our high schools, we don't have this like whatever you've got, middle schools, and that's just high school. But in the school library, there was this magical book, The Purple Primer, and it was the Airfix Book of Ancient Wargaming by
Oh
Phil
wow.
Barker. And it was an introduction to ancient miniatures gaming. And I just read this thing and it changed my world because it was full of history that I didn't know. But here's this amazing miniatures gaming hobby. So I raged into local libraries and just found a wealth of books by what we now really think of as sort of the foundation fathers and mothers of miniatures gaming: Donald
Right.
Featherston, Phil Barker, Sue Barker,
Hmm.
um, and
Excuse me.
Charles Grant, and all these sorts of people. So I sort of got these, and I found a war games club in town, and
Mm.
that was incredibly enabling because that's the usual collection of miniatures gamers, but I think the age band was a lot broader back then. We're talking, by the way, we're talking like early 70s here
Right.
because I'm like, coffee years old. But they really welcomed this 12-year-old kid into their ranks.
Hmm.
I'm there the first night, and someone's like, I didn't know anything about the Napoleonic period, but someone said, "Oh, we're playing a Napoleonic game. Here, you can be on the Austrian side. These guys are Hungarian. These are Grenadiers. You're sub-generaling. We'll tell you the rules as we go. Let's go." And they just trust you to play. And you're just sort of one of the gang. So you start getting out books on history and reading to catch
Hmm.
up. And it was just incredible inclusion. And I kind of started a club at our little amazing hippie bush school. But when Dungeons and Dragons came out,
Hmm.
this was its audience. It came into these clubs, and we'd already been playing. In fact, I have my original copy right here. Good old On Guard, beep,
Oh
On
wow.
Guard,
Yes.
and $3.50. You know that's old. Uh, so that's older than Brown Book D&D right there.
Hmm.
So these were kind of the very first role playing games, although the very first one was Brownstein. But
Hmm.
the little Brown Book D&D was these clubs, and we played it, and it was an absolute eye opener. I absolutely adored it. It was amazing. So we would mix miniatures and role playing. It was all part of the same hobby,
Hmm.
but this became my particular passion, and I'd if you watch my channel, you can look for the Empire of the Petal Throne stuff. But
Oh yes.
Empire of the Petal Throne walked into my world, and I adored that world.
Hmm.
And I was one of those people that would like write to the creators. So when Dungeons and Dragons came out, I wrote off to TSR, and wackily enough, I ended up sort of striking up a sort of a pen pal friendship with Dave Arneson, which
Hmm.
lasted until his death. And I wrote off to the creator of Empire of the Petal Throne,
Yeah.
and that started a pen pal friendship that lasted until his death. But these people were amazingly kind of enabling for a young teenager, because they didn't write back and say, "Oh, thanks for liking the game." They wrote back to say, "This is fantastic. We're glad you're part of this hobby. We see you making your own stuff and that you want to do your own games. Fantastic. Get in there, do it. Hey, we hope we can catch up with you and play in person sometime." And so it's just such a positive. Well, those early books written by Donald Featherston and
Hmm.
Phil Barker and Sue Barker and so on, they were the same. They were these books that had a passion for this thing, and they wanted to communicate to the reader and say, "We're in love with this and we want to show you why. And
Okay.
we want you to fall in love with it too." So it was this, like, you're being drawn into this joy and passion. And I've tried to keep that. But I got involved with doing sort of the very first uh, gaming conventions in Australia.
Hmm.
We put those together, and I was straight off doing my own games. I wanted to be a science fiction and fantasy author, so I sort of skewed my education to do that. But I really wanted to be a game designer as well. So I went to university and decided to study history and literature as my
Hmm.
main things. Also cool stuff like philosophy of argument. But because of the wacky way you could reach out to other universities and so on, I decided I'll do some game design stuff too. So I the Royal Military College of Duntroon actually had a games theory course. Its least favorite course. People who were going to be officers basically decided now they won't do it. But then they get this sort of crazy person saying, "Hey, I'll do it by correspondence," and just like, why? Well, because. So,
Yeah.
oh, maybe this person wants to go forth and be a mighty military leader. Oh, hell no! I'm just I'm working on stuff. And I was actually in the Army Reserve.
Hmm.
Australia has a volunteer army that parallels the full-time army,
Hmm.
and a lot of the really old traditional regiments, like the Australian Light Horse, those are all reserve army units these days. But
Okay.
so I joined the Prince of Wales Light Horse. Was the finest swordsman in the regiment, of course. I was in fact the only one. Um, and and in fact, I was one of Australia's last actual serving cavalrymen, as in on a horse, because I came from hippie bushland. We had horses
Yeah.
on the property. When you join the army, they ask for your what are your skills and hobbies and this sort of stuff. And in there, I'd put like horse riding, and I'd been trained in sort of martial arts from about 6 years old, but
Hmm.
also trained as a fencer from about 8 or 9. Had just been doing this, so I've got this down. And of course, they actually needed horse riders to lead off like Anzac parades. Someone got the idea of, we'll have proud and noble Australian light horse leading off the parade, and the light horse regiment says, "Oh, we can do that." And then it gets closer to the parade, and they're like, "Oh crap, what did we promise to do?" So you get these sort of you're in a course kind of learning about you know um 105 mil gunnery for the actual tracked vehicles we actually use. And then someone would stick a head through the door and it's like, "Who's the bloke who can ride horses?" It's like, me. So, "Oh, thank Christ, quick, come here." And they'd borrow horses from like the mounted police and throw you in. And there was an obscure rule too, that any day you serve mounted,
Hmm.
the army has to basically buy you a minimum of 2 beers.
Sign me
Because
up.
yeah, and obscure rule left over from the 1920s when they handed all their horses in or whatever, but it's still there. It's like, all right, here's your beer money. Just, oh, don't drink it all at once, one solitary. But
Hmm.
so then was the days. But yeah, I was really keen on being a games designer,
Okay.
and I began working on the game that became the Albedo role-playing game,
Yes. Yes. Yeah.
and that was
Uh,
my first.
yeah.
But that
I've
was
got some questions about that in a little bit. So yes, absolutely.
oh
Carry on.
cool.
Sorry.
But yeah, as I got out of university and was, of course, like broke and destitute, as indeed I am now, I I just saw an advert in the paper. Someone
Hmm.
was looking for a game designer, so I rolled in, and it's like, well, if you want a professional kind of game designer, someone that's actually games theory, someone that's part of it in this half of the planet, you're
Yeah.
talking to them. So that was Beam
Mm.
Software. Oh, sorry. At that stage, it was Melbourne House,
Okay.
who were like one of the really early computer game design houses. Um, they had done such noble things as Horace Goes Skiing, but they also did the Hobbit computer game.
Oh, wow.
And but now they had text heavy stuff, and they just realized that this had been founded on the idea that people who were really great at programming would be great at designing games. That is the most kind of tragic fallacy you could ever do. And they said, we need someone that's just like the designer, the ideas person,
Yes.
plus they've got to be able to do dialogue. And so I ended up doing that. So I became the sort of the person who did things like the Lord of the Rings role-playing games. Initially, they rolled the Hobbit team over into that, and then for the subsequent, volumes 2 and 3, they just sort of handed that to me, and
Mhm.
there was a great team that did that. But and then so I did a ton of like home computer games in like really early home computer games things, inventing processors that are still used today. And then when home consoles came out, like when the very first Nintendos appeared, I did the first Nintendo game done outside of Japan, which was Airwolf, the theme song of which still haunts me to this day. Um, and I went on and did stuff for when the SNES came out. I did things like the Shadowrun SNES game and
Yes. Wow.
um,
Uh,
oh god, what's
Night
the other one? Nightshade.
Nightshade.
That was
Yeah.
it. I'm surprised there are shrine sites out to these things to this day. So, and then I actually ended up getting fired for doing a brilliant job on Shadowrun because these
How
people like
so?
essentially the company had a sudden shift. They decided to change their business culture to an actual kind of business culture.
Oh,
Whereas it had been creatives who were all experts at their jobs doing their thing. So the
yes.
original stuff that came out was just full of joy and energy and was clever. Then someone decided the way to run this was to regiment it, and that was just never going to work. And they were going to micromanage all these experts, which was never going to work. And then they'd started actively cheating people. Now, as a games designer, I have to say I was paid less than the girl that answered the phones. Like they just despised the games designers. There
Mm.
was 2 or 3 of us working there at the time, and it got so bad actually. These guys never gave credits to the design stuff. So one game came out and a guy there had done all the design on it, and they just put the credits in. Oh, whatever, the faceless game designer.
Yeah.
Things got so bad that this guy said, "The company has declared I am the faceless game designer. They have taken my face from me.
Oh,
The
no.
company is always right." He turned up to work every day with a brown paper bag over his head with 2 eye holes in it, and would only answer to the faceless game designer. That is
Oh.
his identity now. That's when you know the place is going down in
Yeah.
flames. But I they had different kind of teams working on things. They'd had the rights to do Shadowrun for quite some time, and
Mhm.
we had done Nightshade. And what happened on Nightshade was it was kind of a bit of a dull gumshoe. So I sat down with another guy called Jeff Kamenek, and we decided over one weekend, let's redo every bit of dialogue, every tag for every item, and let's make it all funny. And then let's kind of do an alternative version of this that's comedic dialogue and whatever. We'll hand the end publisher the serious one and the funny one, and they can decide which one they want to run with. But I think as an actual professional, I think version A isn't working, so we'll offer you a version B. It's a ton of work we haven't been asked to do, but
Yeah.
I think I owe them the choice. They went with the comedic one, and of course, the powers that be in the company were furious. Like, how dare
Oh.
you? It's like, no, 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 no. I'm the producer and designer on this. It's
Mhm.
my baby. I
Yeah.
say you have no point in that. I believe I have served this property above and beyond the Call of Duty. So on that basis, they decided, well, they'd had the license for Shadowrun for a while and they'd let it sit for 6 months. Normally, it took them a full year to do a game.
Mhm.
So they said, right, we can't just fire this person, but what if we have Casus Bello? What if we put me as producer and so on this thing that sat for 6 months untouched? There's a deadline of only 6 months to delivery. When the thing's not delivered in that time, we can say, oh, this person's obviously a failure and fire them. But we got it done in 6 months because I just gathered together a bunch of good people, and we just threw all the bureaucracy out the window. We just sat in the same room. There were no time waste on meetings. If you wanted something, you just talked to the guy in the next chair. Hey, we got those new levels done. Oh yeah, do you need more? Oh yeah, I'd like a sewer level, please. Oh, pipes and stuff. Yeah, okay, working on it. no meetings involved, so no time loss. So we got it done. And at the end of that, they were giving a big speech about how this thing. Well, look, it came out on time, but I think there's probably going to be a lesson here learned that this is just not the way to do a game. And this guy Jeff Kamenek came racing in because on the way to work he'd actually picked up all of the games magazines, and we gotten straight 10 out of 10s from every single
Mhm.
publication. So he just in the middle of the speech burst through the doors. Hey, Shadowrun got 10 out of 10 for every single reviewing platform in the world, and yeah, that was when they fired me. Side note:
Oh.
never tell someone who's got your security keys that you're fired in 1 week, because
Oh.
I'm
Well,
I'm a role playing gamer. We will loot the building, and it's
oh,
like,
in the same vein, yes, never let your IT manager know that you're letting him go, because
oh yeah,
suddenly what's the password? What password?
the
I don't know
IT
what you're talking about.
department. I was touched to see they instilled a virus in the place, and it
Yes.
was it was the uh, it was the Pauli Kidd memorial virus, and it would just go. And it was like, no one's ever done an act of civil terrorism in my name before. I'm so touched. Yeah.
Well, who would have
Oh God.
thought the video game industry would have been fickle and controlling? Pause for
I
laughter.
I keep telling people this. They keep bringing me in to talk to groups of these students
Mhm.
today and whatever. I keep saying, "What are you all doing here?" Okay, look, I'll keep talking so they think someone's in the building, but I'll open the side door. You can go, escape, go, 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 go. Make your own companies.
Yeah, I think I know that there was a redo of several of these Shadowrun top-down RPGs. I'm not sure if this one was part of them, but I I I haven't really looked them too much. I just saw them on
They
some of the
never asked
sites.
any of the original staff to be a part of it, which is a shame.
Probably,
That would have been a
yeah,
nice touch, but
it would have been. Yeah, it's
and I could have done with the money. But yeah, that was. I went on. I actually did like went over to England and did the Discworld computer
oh
games.
oh
And I had been good friends with Terry Pratchett for decades. So
hmm
essentially, we're doing a Discworld game. Well, who else are you going to get to do? So
right.
uh, I wasn't the designer on it. They got me in to do all the comedic dialogue and so on. And so uh, that meant a lot of times sort of bumming around England and hanging out with Terry and
Mhm.
doing stuff. So that was kind of that was a rort. I mean, that was a good job. It was nice though because these guys had like a serious attack of gosh, we're important. So they're spending top dollar. So I got to hang out with all these voice actors. So I got to spend days and days and days with people like John Pertwee, Doctor Who,
Mhm,
Tony Robinson,
mhm.
and just a ton of interesting people. But they had other projects, so they're just, oh, you just get to know this actor in case we use them. So I get to hang out with the actors from like the young ones and uh, the guys from the X Files,
Mhm.
and I got to hang out with like Peter Falk
Oh.
because they wanted to do a Columbo thing, and it was all on these people's money. So it's like I ended up getting kind of ripped on those projects. Again,
Mhm.
they just didn't pay royalties and things. But on the other hand, hey, I got a couple of days hanging out with like Peter Falk and my favorite Doctor Who. So
Yes.
um, fair
I mean,
enough.
sometimes having those life experiences are worth it, but as you say, it's also kinda nice to have a little financial gain on top of it too. Um, so so couple questions. So you've obviously have, you've made your way, you've stepped into, the gaming industry, so to speak. You've had some highs, you've had some lows, you've had some successes with this. But you brought up the Albedo role playing game, which is probably for me one of the first role playing games that I discovered that wasn't Dungeons and Dragons, because one, had no idea it existed, and two, I grew up reading, being a giant anthropomorphic, you know uh animal comic book fan. I was yes.
Yeah.
Captain Carrot, of course, Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, and all of that run, the radioactive black belt hamsters during that phase. Yes. But also I went back and, because if for those who aren't familiar with the Captain Carrot storyline, a lot of these superheroes within those animals were actually old DC Comics, just regular animal comics, like comic strips. And so went back into that. And the other thing is this was also when it came out, or around the time it came out, was during the run of Robotech here in the States.
Ah, okay.
So yeah, so I discovered the comic, as I was constantly going to the comic book store at the time. I was buying, getting comic books, getting games, and discovered this. And I don't know if it was its first printing or second run. I'm not entirely sure when it was published, but so I discovered it, and so it obviously it had some mecha military look to it, but it had anthropomorphic animals, and so it was something that I enjoyed. I'm like, this is great. This is right up my alley. And there was a game store in downtown Fullerton. There was where in California, once upon a time, long time ago, one side was a comic book store that was all comics and collectibles, and the other side was a gaming store.
Oh, lovely.
So after getting into the comic book, walk to the other side, and there's the Albedo box set, I think it was, and like,
Mm.
oh, this is fantastic. And like so many times when I try to get to my friends, of my younger gaming group days to play something other than Dungeons and Dragons, it fell flat. It always did. I mean, if I couldn't get them to play, even try out Call of Cthulhu, they sure as hell weren't going to play Albedo, but it was worth a try. So it sat many years in my, on my shelf until eventually the tragedy of how so many people lose their original gaming collection. Some people hold on to them. Mine, different story for another day. But one of the things was that when I discovered your video was realizing that you were involved in not just mine, but a lot of people's, gaming exploration and discovery through a lot of different venues, not just, things such as, Albedo, but of course there's, your own creation of Lace and Steel, which many people enjoy and rave about. When I picked up the box set and I did a little opening video, everyone's like, "This is my favorite game. You need to go play it, enjoy it, have a good
Uh,
time." But other things that people may not be aware of too is, as you mentioned earlier, you wanted to be a fantasy sci-fi author. You got involved in writing a lot of games for well, I guess it was for TSR, even though some of the books look like they came out after the whole WotC transition thing. But
oh, novels, yeah.
yes, the
Yeah. Well, yeah.
yeah,
So
no, we'll
I was
start with
doing
that.
both.
Hmm.
We can start with that. Yeah. So, well, actually, yeah, it's all.
Yeah,
So I,
uh,
so I
rewind it
did.
if you need to. Sorry, go on.
Yeah. The so I did the first role playing game
Hmm.
that I did was Albedo,
Okay.
and I was trying to work on a science fiction system, and yeah, it was going well. But I was trying to break some new bounds. I wanted something that could also be kind of political and personal. So I was trying to put systems in there that could model loyalty and betrayal and friendship and um, self-image and attachments to things.
Hmm.
I'm loyal to my buddy, but I'm loyal to I'm loyal to the core. What do I do? Do I let my buddy die because I've got orders to like do this, or so these sort of conflicts should be a part of it. And as I was kind of working with this, one of the guys from Melbourne House, which had transformed into Beam Software,
Hmm.
he was a big comic fan, and it was the damn superhero stuff. I despise superhero stuff.
Hmm.
But we're going into town. So I've got to go into the comic store and pick stuff up. So okay, I was kind of dragged in there. And I was standing in a corner, like, oh crap, let's find a corner to hide in and look like we're not really here. But that was like Funny Animal Row. And it's like, oh wait, this stuff's great. I've always loved animal characters. Just
Hmm.
really loved them. And there was the Albedo comic. And there was also a thing called Critters, which had a story
Yes.
by Steve Galacci, who did Albedo. So I
Yes.
like open these like, oh, this is kind of actual hard science fiction, but with animal characters. So
Hmm.
I really grabbed these and just fell in love with them. So I thought, you know what? Let's take this game idea and let's mesh this with this property. So I wrote off to Steve Galacci to say, I've been working on this. Hey, look, why don't I make this, you know, an albedo or the critter story was birthright. Why don't we make it a role-playing game of that environment. So he came on board and did all the artwork, and so that was it. Um, Went back and forth. We created this thing, and that was my first role-playing game. Steve got really involved with helping to produce it in the US
Mhm.
because at this stage it's the mid 80s, like about
Mhm.
84, 85.
Yeah.
So if you want to do a game, you've got to physically print it. It physically sits there. You have to prepay to print X thousand copies and just
Mhm.
pray unto whatever thing that you believe in that these somehow sell and you get your money back. But to have that stored in the USA with the sales are going to be is kind of important. So because he was involved with so many printers for comics and so on, he could
Mhm.
enable all that. So that was, thank you, Steve. Um, but I then went over to Gen Con and so on to sell the game, and
Mhm.
just met Steve and met so many people. It was just amazing. Made many sort of gaming friends and so on over there. But I was also at that stage working on my very first novels and so on.
Mhm.
And I found what you could do is you could go over there because you get a month holiday, month paid holiday here in Oz. So in 1 month you could go to Gen Con one weekend,
Mhm.
you could go to San Diego Comic Con. There was like
Yes.
usually a weekend gap somewhere, and then the World Science Fiction Con. They were all like
Oh,
concentrated.
wow.
So you could do 3 conventions in a month and hang out with like comic book artists and authors and games people like in between and just have a riot.
Mhm.
Um, but I went to. I thought I better catch up with. Try and find editors, do the right thing, talk to people. But at the very first uh, Worldcon I went to, I actually met Robert Heinlein, who was
Mm.
incredibly kind to me and sat down and talked with me about writing. So looked over my material, and was really again really empowering. This older generation sort of. Well, you've got the love. You're making the stuff out of love and passion,
Yeah.
and that's what you need. So he was fantastic, and the other person who was encouraging to me with writing was Jack Vance, whose work I just adore.
Wow.
Um,
Yes.
and again, we stayed pen pal friends till the end of his days as well.
Mhm.
But at another Worldcon, I think it's the second one I went to, there was a big party. There was a company that would always hire out the entire penthouse floor, and they'd run these big parties, and it was the big thing that you'd go to. And I went up there, and actually, I was horrified um, because it was a pretty corrupt industry, but there was actual
Oh.
casting couch activity going on
Oh,
there.
no.
It was
Jeez.
incredibly predatory. And there was another guy there who's just looking at me in horror. And we finally like looked at each other and it's like, I'm not staying here. Says, I'm going
Mhm.
to set fire to this place. So we both left, heading to the bar. Says, I'm Australian. I'll buy you a drink, mate. So we went down, we talked. And it turned out this was like the new book editor for TSR who were
Oh.
going to start up their own line of novels. So we got talking. So he just basically said, do you have a finished manuscript? Well, yeah, I do of my first novels. Like, give it to me. Um, oh, it's not like I carry it around with me everywhere. Yeah, of course I do. Here you go.
Yes.
Um, and so that came out, and TSR were brilliant because they actually gave so many people their first shot. There are a ton of
Yeah.
authors that got things out. Jeff Swycaffer and a whole bunch of other nice people. But so they gave me my first one, which was Muss of Kerbridge,
Mhm.
and the cover art for
Yes.
that was done by, sorry for dead naming, Paul Jaquays, who became
Yes.
Janelle Jaquays.
Yes.
And that was actually their favorite piece of artwork at the time. And I think Janelle still has it sort of proudly on her wall to this
Oh,
day. That
really?
book's that book's still in print. It's come out.
Mhm.
I self-publish it now because I found copies of it were like selling for thousands on eBay, and people were
Ah.
like, "Says, oh no, look, I'll give it. I'll just do it." But um, I ended up doing a whole bunch of Dungeons and Dragons novels because Rob King, the editor, sort of came to me and he said at one stage, "Oh, would you like to do a Forgotten Realms book?" Now, I don't like Forgotten Realms. It's just, he said, "How did you describe Forgotten Realms?" Says, "Ah, um, the most talented man in the world walks around with the most unbelievable magician in all space and time, heading off down the shops while two gods wrestle each other to death while the continent slides beneath the waves." It's like, oh yeah, yawn another day. So, yeah, like that. So, would you like to do a Forgotten Realms novel? I said, don't say
Uh,
no. Don't say no.
Right.
I'm leaving the company, and I can take, yeah. So I'll be your editor wherever I go, but leave a funny novel and I'll sign off on it. So I
Mhm.
did a comedic novel which is called The Council of Blades,
Yes.
and I actually liked that one. It was a riot, um, but Rob left and so on. But right at this point, there was like a whole pogrom. That was the thing working with TSR was every now and then. Everyone would just go. It's like you'd phone up and like, no, everyone you know at the company are gone. And we just said, it's like calling a Russian director. No, comrade, there's no one here of that name. There's just bodies floating face down in the Dnieper River. They've like, whoop, another pogrom, comrade. No, their faces have been removed from all the photographs. Um,
Mm,
but when Wizards of the Coast bought over TSR, they decided they're going to do third edition D&D.
yeah.
So they said, we want some novels written to launch this, but we want something that kind of really encapsulates the gamer experience. So it has to be written sort of by a gamer, for
Right.
gamers. So they looked at basically said who got the most kind of fun feedback from actual gamers, and it was me. So they came to me to say, could you do these books based on some of the great classic dungeon modules?
Modules.
So
Yes.
White Plume Mountain, and then for some reason they said do Descent to the Depths of the Earth, and then do Queen of the Demon Web Pits. It's like, okay, you've kind of mixed module streams, but whatever. So I did those, and they've been a comedy hit. Again, they've kind of stayed. They best jobs I ever did. They paid me royalties once a year, every year. It's like I
Mhm.
still get paid for that job because TSR never paid much. But I mean, I've got 43 novels out in print. I'm like very, very widely published, but the,
Yeah.
the TSR jobs are great. Then when they did fourth edition, they came back and they asked me if I would
Oh,
do a Gamma World novel
Gamma
for
World.
them.
Yeah.
And I adore Gamma World. I've always loved it to bits. So
Mhm.
hell yeah, I'll do a Gamma World novel. So I did a Gamma World novel for them, even though like that edition of Gamma World, which was the latest one, it made little sense to man or beast. It's just like,
That was the green box Gamma World, if I'm not mistaken.
oh, I think so. It was made to
Yeah.
mesh in with fourth edition D&D. They just turned a role playing game into a board game
I think
essentially,
that's it. Yeah.
and it was just. But what the hell? I was kind of disappointed because they were gonna. They asked me if I would be their Gamma World person. Like, could you do regular Dragon magazine articles and all
Mhm.
this sort of stuff? Then they just decided, nah, we'll drop the whole idea. Oh, okay. But I went on and I did my own kind of gamma worldy role playing game called Gene Storm, and did a pair of novels in that setting. Gene Storm, there's two novels of that out, and those are. I just had so much fun with those. There's some British directors out there, like they're movie directors, like they've been friends because like these are our favorite books of all time. So, good, do a stunting movie of it, you bastards. Um, these books were actually written to see, could you do a rubber mask movie like Babylon 5 style? Would that fly in this day and age? Because Australia, they're set essentially in Australia. If you ever
Mhm.
wanted to do crazy post-apocalypse sci-fi, do it here. Where I live, within a day's reach, there are bright pink lakes. There are weird rust deserts with
Oh,
like, ancient lead mines sticking out of them. There's
we
rusting mining equipment with people. They just, oh, we could disassemble this. Nah, just let it rust. Yeah.
we joke with a friend of ours, Blake, who lives on the eastern coast of Australia. The book Terra Australis for Call of Cthulhu from
Oh,
Chaosium. Yeah, we say that's not a game book. That's an actual travel log of the all of the crazy stuff that goes on over there. We're always
kind
giving
of.
because we found. I mean, I know a lot of people go, "Oh my God, look at the spiders in Australia! Look at all these crazy stuff." And then he tells me about magpie season, if it couldn't get any more crazy. And I'm like, what is magpie season and why is there a magpie season? And he goes, I assume you know what it is, but for those who don't, I guess when once a year, whatever, whenever that's the magpies get together to make little magpies, they get very territorial, and they won't just squawk at you; they will buzz and attack you. There's and
It's
people
not a
running
little
to their
bird.
cars. No.
Um, Australia's one of Australia's many gifts to the world, evolutionary speaking, was the corvids, as in all crow and raven species evolved
Yeah.
here. And So I guess there were some that just were too crazy to really export, and the magpies are one of them. So it's like it's a raven essentially. It's a black and white raven with a very
Mhm.
pointy nose, and yeah, they will dive bomb you.
Oh.
People complain about it, but the thing is, I've tried to teach like friends and offspring. Okay, so I'm uh, if we're playing role playing games, I'm the fast talk and storytelling expert. In real life, yes, I tend to be the face woman. Uh, Same with animals. Yeah, there's plenty of magpies here. So they
Mhm.
all like me because I feed them. Just bribe them. What?
Right.
Be the person they love. Hey, they never swoop you on the streets. Of course not. I leave out food and water for them. That's like. Plus, if everything happens, like fly, my pretties, destroy. I'm going. I'm going all Hitchcock on your ass now. Let's go.
Oh,
Oh god, there's
excellent.
some wacky stuff here. I love West Australia. There's
Mhm.
what have we got? We got velvet worms,
Mhm.
one of the oldest terrestrial life forms on Earth. It's like a kind of a velvet covered caterpillar that can
Yeah.
essentially shoot webs out of little faucets on its front. We've got whip spiders, which they look a little bit like a huntsman spider, but they've actually got kind of crab claws at the front.
Yeah.
Like another seriously old thing. We've got tingle trees, which is like a Cretaceous period tree down in the forest. It's like
Mhm.
I have a partner. She lives in San Francisco. She came over to visit and everything, and
Yeah.
taking her. Perth's on the cusp. There's rainforest to the south and just endless smegging desert in every other
Mhm.
direction. But we went down to the rainforest there. We were driving along, and like she's like, "Oh, slow down a bit, honey." So, well, no, it's like 100 kilometers an hour, like. And we've got about 1,000 to get where we're going. It's like, so if I go 100, it'll take us 10 hours. If I go 80, it will take us like
Mhm.
12. And so what if there's other cars? Like, do you see any? Oh, but there might be a town. Says, no, no, no. That sign that said last petrol for 300 kilometers, says, they mean that. There is
Yeah.
no other human habitation here. There's just the road and the smegging bush. And do you see those columns we're passing? Yeah, those are termite mounds. The termite mounds and whatever hellish creature sees those as dinner. That's pretty much it. Oh, and 80% of the world's entire population of venomous creatures. I was in Thailand in November. It's kind of neat. We're
Mhm.
walking around like a park there, and there were these very nervous Irish and English people sort of in the tour, going that this nice tour guide, this very laid back Thai tour guide's kind of showing us stuff. But when they found out there were snakes in the area, they were like, "What do we do with the snakes?" Like, well, I said, if you see the Australian lady run, yeah, that's when you should run. Otherwise, don't worry. It's like, "Oh, but there aren't you guys. But it's not like you've seen any and haven't told us." Yeah, I look at the Thai person. They look at me. Said, "Yeah, we'd totally tell you if we just passed a cobra." It's like, what did you think we were just photographing? Oh,
Oh.
oh God. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah.
it's,
Come visit. That's
Australia's actually great. It's like, but I had a gamer friend from Iceland come to
Mhm.
visit. It was like having my very own kamikaze, because they don't have spiders and things there
Mhm.
because freezing, sodding cold. But if something, particularly if it's pretty colored, he would just reach out and pick it up. And it's like
Oh.
Australia, like, oh no, 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 those colors are like there for a reason. But look, I have this wonderful creature upon my hand. Like, keep your hand flat, move it over to the tree, and let it walk off. Why? He says, well, I'll tell you after it walks off. But
Right.
um,
Oh
no,
my.
actually, I'm a bug and insect person. I
Yeah.
adore them. So it's like, but the thing is, bug and insect people, you just know what you can and can't pick up,
Oh yeah.
unless if you're not and bugs like us because we like them. But it's like, but he would like we go to a beach, there'd be a storm, and there's all these Portuguese man of war have washed up on the beach, so there's just tentacles everywhere. I've still got scars from like accidentally brushing one when I was a kid. And this guy, he's just barefoot because it's a beach.
Oh.
Somehow he walks through this and misses every single tentacle. And like he starts picking these things up by the look, look, ding dong. Oh, for God's sakes, man. Okay. You seen those World War II things where guys walk into a minefield? Yeah. I need you to come back to me treading in your own footprints right now.
Oh,
Oh,
amazing.
God. But
So
oh well.
you have your novels. So you've done these novels. You've been working with, at the time was a TSR on its way out, and coming in as the fledgling WotC, which at the time, as most people know, that there was a bit of carryover. They didn't fully become, they didn't throw TSR out the window until later on. But I assume you're working on something else at this time, your Lace and Steel game.
Yeah.
And so how did I mean, listening to you and your history, it's safe to assume that, considering, where you've come from and your background, your love of a particular era, you're a fencer. Obviously there's certain things that you enjoy that were part of the history of this type of era that you're trying to portray in Lace and Steel. So, but what was the onus for that game? What brought you into this particular style and setting that you've created?
Right. So for those who don't know, Lace and Steel is a sort of a swashbuckling and romance game with
Mhm,
a very kind of 1640s European setting. So English
mhm.
Civil War, Three Musketeers, 30 Years War.
Yes.
And back when I first discovered wargaming, in fact, when D&D came out, the other wacky thing was because I
Hmm.
traveled Europe and sort of, I think I've been to every single English castle, which is no mean feat. But there was this book, and it was actually in the school library, and it was a book on Oliver Cromwell,
Hmm.
and the cover has guys riding along on horseback. They're in some kind of armor, breast and back and a lobster tail helmet. Still my
Hmm.
favorite helmet, but they've obviously got like pistols in their holsters and they're holding carbines. And it was like for a 12-year-old, it's like a bit of a revelation. It's like armor and guns.
And
Wait, I
pistols?
guess
Yeah.
I guess there had to be a crossover period. Let's
Mhm,
read this and let's get into it. I became really fascinated by that period. And indeed the history part of my university degree was actually English Civil War history was a huge part of it. And
mhm,
I love that 17th century through to kind of Louis the 14th, War of the Spanish Succession. That was my big kind of Yahoo thing, and which rolls over to the periods on either side of it, but it tends to go more upwards than downwards. So yeah,
yeah.
if someone's wearing a tricorn hat, I'm your buddy. But so and I loved things like the Three Musketeers and so on. I'd grown up on all of these. I'd always been a fencer. I'd started fencing kind of about age 8 or 9, and
Hmm.
but particularly epee. And I used to compete nationally. I was actually quite elevated epee. Um, but I also like sort of sidebar. I continued training martial arts and eventually switched to Japanese weapon arts and so on.
Okay.
So for about 50 years, I've just continued ceaselessly like training, 3 3-hour sessions a week.
Hmm.
And so if you want to know and be shown obscure Japanese spear fencing styles, I am the person. Hey, more on that later. But so I wanted to do something that would sort of be Three Musketeers-y as a game,
Hmm.
um sort of the whole silver bladey kind of thing. There was a TV series, a BBC TV series called By the Sword Divided, which is an English Civil War series, which is just beautiful. So I
Hmm.
wanted that, and my first novel, Muss of Curbridge, is actually the Lace and Steel novel, is what that is.
Okay.
But so I did this game, and I wanted first off, I wanted it to leap forward from albedo and have something that could do politics and romance. So it's got to have that way of modeling loyalties and love and hatred and vendettas and so on in there. There has to be a combat system which will simulate a good fencing style, but there should also be ways of doing like non-violent combat. There should be a
Hmm.
repartee system, and so you should be able to like do a social party where you snub your rivals and quash someone, and that should be a part of it. We shouldn't always be killing things.
Hmm.
So I actually invented a card-based combat system for this thing, which is a really nice fencing system. And it's had real staying power. People are a big fan of this, and there are tons of fans of the game today. I really want to do a new edition, but I just don't have the funds to carry it. Um, I'd love to do a new edition of Lace and Steel. I keep trying to
Hmm.
ask Modophius because, oh, we're
Hmm.
big fans of this. Good, do it, you bastards. Hey, $1 million Kickstarter people, why don't you? But because I got nothing. But
Hmm.
yeah, the card based system was rather fun. You've got different attack lines, sort of upper, middle, lower, and depending on your skill, you get like bigger or smaller hands of cards or a special card. So it was a game of kind of bluff and drawing high level cards out of the other person and thrust and parry and so on. And you could work some repartee into the fight. And
Hmm.
what what some people say, oh, I was good at it because I was umpiring it for people. So I felt bad because I would, if I was doing a fight with my players, yeah, because I was better than them. Like I would beat them, and I was feeling bad. I was, can I give you a secret? Yeah, just throw the game. What? Just play your crap cards. What? You're an umpire. You're allowed to do that. The DM
Yeah.
can do that. It's like drive them back against the wall. Can I tell you how I used to sell it? Drive the person that you're demonstrating the game back against the wall. It's all desperate, and then suddenly let them come back and get you, and they're like, "Hey, this is a good game." But yeah, that was a great game. I did a um, like an adventure supplement for it, but it came out through this company called Tag, the Australian Games Group,
Hmm.
and they were a strange little group. They published the game, but they kind of lost interest in publishing itself. Um, they were more interested in making the thing than selling it, so
Oh.
they just weren't
Hmm.
fulfilling orders. And so, I think to this day, the guy's probably still got like a few thousand copies somewhere.
Eh,
Um,
well, he should sell it because it's going
yeah,
for like everything. It's going for ridiculous collectors paywall
yeah. I
prices
wish
now.
I had copies, but yeah, I was proud of that. It was a groundbreaking game. The artwork was
Mhm.
done by Donna Barr, who's was from the sort of the fledgling sort of furry and
Mhm.
alternative comic community at the time. So
Yep.
beautiful artwork. The centaurs could be characters. The idea too, the fancy races that were
Mhm.
in this, they're all kind of Romanesque, the sort of things you find
Yeah.
in Baroque artwork. So it was satyrs, centaurs, these sorts of things. So you got these beautiful sort of centaurs, and the women have got like a apron style skirt. And this is all your lace collar and rapier sort of period, and
Mhm.
pistols and three-quarter armor and all these sorts of things. So an interesting period. I'm doing a new game at the moment actually called Sealy that my housemate's laying out, and that's moved a little bit further on. It's kind of the Earl King's Sealy Court, but that court's very much modelled on kind of Louis XIV of Versailles.
Okay.
So lots of court intrigue and love and romance and backstabbing, but with some really good wigs. Um, and
Are you using a similar system? Is this going to be kind of a system agnostic setting, or
No,
how you working that out
it's
with
got its
Sealy?
own system. It's
Hmm.
a card system again,
Okay.
and again, trying to bring some gamesmanship into gaming. So it's got a risk reward kind of card system where you can push things too far and make your own downfall. Basically, well, I've
Yeah.
made a vague win here, but I can try pushing it so that I get like a sweeping victory, and but now my chances of success are being stacked up against turning this into a fail by pushing too hard. So some gamesmanship involved there, but it's a nice
Yeah.
little. It doesn't use it uses an ordinary card deck rather
Okay.
than a Lace and Steel, which had its own
Hmm.
card deck.
Yeah.
Uh, but again, social conflict and so on
Yeah.
is in there. And in that kind of very Versailles thing, you can model things like maneuvering for position. So if you're trying for like an appointment and there's rivals and so on, that political maneuvering and leaning on people and getting favors and whatever, that's all simulated in the system as a sort of a long term. It's a non-violent conflict that you actually play. So again, you don't have to be like putting your life at risk to be having conflict resolution in the game.
Yeah.
Um,
And who doesn't want to be involved in court intrigue, not only in Versailles, but with the Sealy court? I mean, synergy, I think, is a term that can be used because they both sound fan. I mean, that's like a dream kind of people who love that kind of thing, the intrigue and in the court, backstabbing and
yeah,
Machiavellian
and like
conflicts and
anything,
whatnot.
if you don't want to, you could
Yeah,
just run in and do a military thing, or
yeah.
hey, you want to beat people up and take their money? I don't know, but yeah, moving beyond the murder hobos has always been my thing because we always played this sort of thing.
Hmm.
That we always played story and so on. So I keep trying to do and I keep trying to push the boundaries of what we're doing here.
Hmm.
Um, let's push. Yeah, there's hundreds of systems out there that have task resolution and rolling against difficulty or whatever. There's 1,000 different ways of doing that. But let's look at modeling something different. Maneuvering for position, court intrigue, love, which can turn into
Yeah.
failed love. Does that love turn into hate? Is your ex now your bitterest enemy? These are
Right.
things that should be able to come in. They should be. So that's what this game's task was. And I know I've got other ones that I've got. So I've just finished designing another one, which will lay out soon, called the Wine Dark Sea, which was trying to do essentially late Bronze Age as its setting. So it's Egypt at its height, but it's the Sea Peoples, and when there's a mysterious collapse of Mediterranean and European civilizations at that time. So it's just at that cusp. Hey, player characters, was it you? But tied in with lots of magic and mystery, and lots of research gone into that one, and that's been fun. So of course that has to be able to model. Again, I'm trying to keep loyalty
Mhm.
and emotions and things like that, but
Yeah.
we've got some different things in there. So I will keep going. I've just done a game for Helion, who are a what would you call them? You've seen the Osprey books,
Yes.
the history books. Helion are the thinking man's Osprey books.
Okay.
They're a British publisher, way more gravitas and kind of larger, more expertly written. But they are bringing out a games line now, so they've gotten me
Oh,
to
wow.
do one for set of miniatures war games rules for the Sengoku period, which is that sort of great age of battles in the samurai period in the 16th century, sort of the
Mhm.
1520 to about 1607 thereabout. So I've done a set of rules for them called Bushidan, which is coming out soon, and so that one. Again, there are tons of miniatures systems out there, but let's do one that's very Japanese. Now, that long martial arts journey of mine, it
Mhm.
included, I spent about 20, 25 years as a student with the Tenshin Shoden Katori Shinto Ryu, received directly from heaven Katori Sacred Shrine style, which is like one of the oldest schools of samurai arts. But it does, fighting with a 12-foot spear and a
Oh,
very,
wow.
very old longsword
Mhm.
katana style, which has stuff designed not just for normal fight, but stuff designed for fighting in armor. There are actual specific blows designed to make so that you don't get tangled with your own helmet crest and all these sorts of interesting remnants, and all these very precise strikes for the exact gaps in like where Japanese armor has them. But part of that, as I was studying that, there's like a whole written curriculum that everyone ignores because, like, oh, it's not about hitting people. But that included magic and elemental magic and exorcism and how to chase fox spirits out of your house. And so I read all this and I did all this as part of it. So this set of rules incorporates kind of Japanese elements and so on in because all
Mhm.
of that rolls into their military thinking. So
Right.
you've got different Japanese, and if you watch something like Ran, the
Mhm.
Kurosawa movie Ran,
Mhm.
you'll see one of the things is the Fusenkan banners, which is like for the Takeda clan, be as silent as the forest, as swift as the wind, as fierce as the fire, as unmoving as the mountain. That's actually these elements in play.
Mm.
So that's what you do. You create like a Rio, a way for your clan, which is its military philosophy, and you balance these elements. And these are the kind of
Oh.
orders that you can give to your troops, and some of these allow you very special things because some of the older kobudo, the older martial arts schools, retain tactical drills. So there are archery groups that do field archery where they'll be like fire and movement attacking in bounds, but there'll be archers who are actually trained to reload lying flat to the ground and then kind of pop up and shoot and then race forward and then go flat again as they reload while the next lot comes up. So it's like, whoa. And you can see, I went to some Sekigahara reenactments because I was part of the
Oh, wow.
International Aquabussi Society, and I was welcomed in by the musket crew because the musket guys are always fun. And yeah, so it's like, wait, I recognize these. These are Japanese musket drills, which were rolled over. So different elements can allow you to put different styles of order onto your troops. And like most elements, some trump each other. So if I've got a fire order and these guys are facing it with water, they have an advantage. So you've got to sort of have a bit of flexibility built in.
Or not. Maybe you just want to be raging maniacs and concentrate everything in a couple of areas. So yeah, so there was a nice kind of, so this, I'm a game designer. This is what I do,
Hmm.
and I've just been asked. Well, I've just finished doing work for Chaosium. They
Yeah.
brought me into Team Pendragon.
Yay.
So they are doing the initial thing was they asked me to come in. I've actually done cultural edits on all their Cthulhu Japanese stuff, but they asked me if I could come in to co-design the what was supposed to be a Heian period Japanese Pendragon. So the
Hmm.
Heian period is that period from about mid 900s to the Mongol invasions, say,
Yeah.
when but really before then, when there's still everything's kind of run by the imperial court and the samurai class really hasn't risen yet. But when they sent me the manuscript, I sort of came in and said, "Oh, all your armor and weapons are all wrong, like
Yeah.
deeply, profoundly wrong, and you've kind of missed." And there were some problems with, like, they're trying to grapple with that. You know how Pendragon uses multi-generational things,
Yes.
but this is going to have to cover many more hundreds of years. So there were discussions. So I said, "Well, look, Japanese record time and still do by um, like an era. So let's not do
Mm.
it by year, but by era."
Yeah. Right.
An interesting thing could run, sometimes it might be a year, sometimes it might be 7, and it's like it'll go. But some of these eras are great as they're recorded. They're serious history, sort of. Oh, in this era, this guy became emperor. There was a famine in the western provinces. Oh, and in June of this year, a 15-foot tall giant skeleton rampaged down the streets of Heian, biting the heads off citizens until a mysterious group of adventurers appeared, drew it off into the woods, and conducted a ceremony which buried it in the ground. Yep. Wait, that should definitely go in like a
Right.
timeline. So they, on this basis, they brought me in and I co-designed it, and so we turned it from just being essentially a Japanese version of Pendragon.
Hmm.
Now there's whole new rule systems in there because this is a period where the court begins to shrink and the samurai class rises.
Oh.
So what happens is you make a Bushidan, which is a group of characters from different backgrounds, but who work together. And some of you might be courtiers, you might be warrior monks, you might be samurai. But as the years go by, the choices that you're making is actually changing society. Whereas Pendragon, now your armor's different. Now your armor's different. It just changed. This is what will happen.
Right.
In this, the decisions you're making, because they're good decisions, it's actually changing society. And you can see how it actually happened. Wait, I bet if we did this, we could get a tax dodge. Yeah. We'll sign this over and we'll make this land. Well, we'll just say the samurai are doing it, and therefore that becomes kind of
Oh.
tax exempt, etc. And
Yes.
so you're actually massaging. Hang on, these guys are starting to lose influence. Well, I tell you what, I'll marry my noble families into some samurai ones, so where they've got some muscle, and that'll stop other noble families getting one up on them. Oh, okay. So now these samurai have got some clout by having a noble collection, but now you're introducing violence into actual politics. Yeah, I've got a hit mob on the street. So you're actually, so who changed that society? You did. So it
Hmm.
was a nice, again, getting a game system that models
Right.
what's happening. So I
It's
think that comes
fascinating.
out. It was supposed to come out this year, but they got delayed releasing the new
Pendragon.
Pendragon.
Yeah.
So, and they want that to settle for a year. So next year I hope it comes out.
Yeah, I mean, that would be fantastic because there's the with the popularity of Pendragon it coming out, people are enjoying it, but still, there's the what you describe reminds me, and I'm going to draw a blank and lose my video game cred, but it reminds me a lot of the strategy games that took place in Japan and China from the late 80s, early 90s. Oh God, it's probably something of the not Thousand Thrones, but I'll look it up and put it on here so people don't yell at me. But I mean, it was a strategy game. Not it began kind of similar to something like Risk, but it did
Oh,
involve a lot of the different intrigues and certain things, not to the to the levels that you can do in a face to face role playing game, but it did involve certain things such as that, and widely popular and enjoyed to this day. And I think it may still be done and redone. And I'll look it
I
up, and
liked,
I'll hang my head in shame. So
it's fun with this because there's things like, I just brought in stuff. So, okay, so Japanese swords. It's like, all right,
oh,
yeah, some of them are better than others, but I'm one of those people that can, look at a sword and usually tell you who made it because
mhm,
it's just been my life. It was my life for so long. But it's okay. Look, they're fashion accessories. Also something I know about. But it's like, so you get in that Pendragon sort of style, the
mhm,
sword you wear tells people a lot about you. So,
mhm.
oh, I see you've got a Murasama sword. Ah, yes, a piquant sword, with slight hints of blossom, but yeah, so it's like, oh, what's it? Well, this guy's getting some indulgence added, onto his
Ah,
personality because
yeah.
he's spent the bucks to basically have this showy thing that's not that practical. What about this guy? Well, he's gone for a more workmanship model. Oh, okay, so so it's all adds to your personality and so on. So it's like, is it a good sword? Well, yeah, I guess so. But hey, look what it did for my personality track. And the same
Oh,
goes for also, how much you spending on making your gear, your armor patterns. Like, I see
oh,
you've chosen an inverted plantain leaf pattern. Interesting.
mm.
What's he trying to say with this?
Oh, sounds fascinating. Sounds fantastic. Very excited. I can't wait.
Yeah.
Hopefully
Oh,
they'll
what
get
I
here sooner
hope.
than later. Oh, sorry, go on.
I wanted to go straight ahead and do basically the Great Samurai campaign, the way they
Mhm.
did the Great, but they
Pendragon.
put the brakes on
Mhm.
and said, "We don't know. We don't know if we're going to do that, or if you're going to roll that over to like roll it over to just open content." And in which case, well, look, can I put my hand out and say if anyone else does this, I'll I'll sink whatever continent they live on beneath the waves. I'd like to do this, please.
Yes.
Sure, in the knowledge that whoever did it would, miss out on 15-foot tall skeletons. Uh, I love the fact that's official history. It's in there. Like, yep.
Really?
So, look, 1066, yes. Norman invasion. The this guy's doing this. This is written. This is woven. Meanwhile, in Japan, 15-foot tall skeleton. It's written. So it must have happened. What? No, they're just these guys were. Look, whatever. Okay,
Oh,
skeleton is fine.
Will do.
Whatever. Whatever. I actually had to give up on the martial arts actually, which was very
Mhm.
hard because it was just such a part of my life. But actually, because I'd switched over to doing full contact stuff,
Mhm.
um, a very brutal kendo school, one of the old pre-war ones, which includes like judo throws and this sort of stuff. So I was
Yeah.
kind of climbing the black belt heights of that, but was also doing Kendo, which is full contact bayonet fencing in like a massively expanded version of kendo armor. So you've got like
Mhm.
armor all up your left arm and in your armpit, and these huge kind of kyoboli. Want to know what kyoboli is like? Go order some jukendo armor and tan kendo, which is associated with that, which is um, it was fighting with a bayonet dismounted in one hand, but it's actually knife fighting and short sword, but again in full armor and so on. But I got cancer
Oh.
and I survived it, lost a bunch of bits of myself, but I had to do like monthly blood tests as monitoring, and it's Australia. This is all free, but they started seeing a lot of burnt muscle tissue in my blood,
Oh.
and sort of, what the hell's going on? It's like, well, it's that thing I do to stay fit. I survived because I was fit. But could you
Not?
could you record one of your sessions now
Oh.
at very high level kind of kendo? There's
Mhm.
this weird thing. What they do is they'll train. There are exercises that are designed to basically make you pass out.
Okay.
You fight and do these exercises until you're literally blacking out with exhaustion, and then they throw you into actual fights. Now we've destroyed you. You've got nothing left but technique. That's a bad idea if you're 20. It's a really bad idea if you're about 60. Uh, and these guys just looked at this and, no, you can't do this anymore. And definitely no being slammed to the mats, and definitely nothing. That thing with the giant bayonet slamming into you, yeah, no, because if there's any damage to, like, the remaining kidney or whatever,
Right.
then you haven't got a backup. So after like 50 years of doing this stuff, I had to
Mhm.
bow out. So, but I I switched over and I'm a dancer these days, which makes me a lot happier because
Yeah.
the martial arts culture. I actually did some anecdotes on this. It had gone very
Mhm.
toxic, and I kind of realized that I'd initially done it for a connection with history and a beauty of movement and history, and that's not what any of this was. It was
Mm.
just about horrendously killing people.
Oh.
And hey, I've spent 9 hours this week exactly learning the correct way of, like, sparing someone's jugular vein. Maybe isn't something human beings should be spending their time doing.
Yeah.
So dance. So yeah, these days I'm a performance dancer for Bollywood and high
Mhm.
heels dance, and I do pole dance and that sort of stuff. Bollywood is hilarious, absolutely amazingly good fun. And so I went and learned some Hindi, so I knew what the hell I was dancing to and these sorts of things. But
The
that's been
the
great fun.
the dance scenes in every single Bollywood movie just looks like everyone's having a wonderful time. They're so exciting and so, you know, it's a
They're
joyous thing to
beautiful.
watch. They're beautiful. Whereas, some of the you can tell when it's, when a dance scene in any particular movie, they're just going through the motions because they're actors and they're doing what they're supposed to do. Whereas others, where you see a group of people just, wonderful
The
music's playing, they're moving, they're shaking, they're doing an absolute fantastic
choreography
job.
is
Yes.
spectacular, but also because I write a lot now. There's the other thing: I write a lot for feature film and TV and so
Mhm.
on, and a lot of this is hidden work. But
Yeah.
as such, I've studied a lot of film, and at an era when film in the US and UK has basically forgotten every decent thing it ever learned, um, Indian directors are so damn good. The stuff they do, it's perfect. And there's a couple like I was just I was just dancing to one from a show called Rahis, which
Mhm.
you can R-A-H-W-S. But there is a song called Layla Main Layla, Layla I'm Layla, and it is a fight scene intermingled with one of these dance scenes. It's really clever. It's like, well, we want our big dance number, but this is a serious kind of gangster movie. Have the big fight scene take place when the show's going on. It's like, well done, you cunning dogs. Yeah.
Oh, one
So you get both.
one
But
of the best movies, of it's this year or last year, RRR, which I don't know if you've had a chance to see that yet. It
oh, I
it
haven't
is
seen it.
oh, it is one of those where if you're an American, who's never watched a Bollywood movie and you've heard stuff about it,
Oh,
but it's an action movie with, most of them are ridiculous, over the top, just absurd action, intermingled with wonderful choreography and dance and songs. But it's one of those where it's, if as someone who may not be familiar with it or just want to, it's a great introduction to it because you're going to be floored by this, adrenaline rush of just off the wall craziness that's going on from beginning to end. Love
oh,
story between,
they'll
there's a
do
love
love
story between two people.
stories.
Yes.
They'll do tragic stories. I was just
Hmm.
watching one. Ah, damn it, I've forgotten the name. Baramada or something. But it's about a 17th century Maharati warlord
Hmm.
and kind of his tragic love because it's a Hindu empire that's basically spreading, but he falls in love with a Muslim girl, and it's like he marries her, but there's all these intrigues to get rid of her. It's like, we're not having you marry a Muslim. It's supposed to be, a mighty Hindu empire, and he's saying everyone should live together.
Hmm.
And he's being fought. So it's actually quite a clever bit of storytelling. But there's like the dance sequences in that are just um, jaw-droppingly stunning. And as I said, every frame of painting, you're looking at this saying, "Wow, wow." So yeah, that was kind of a joy discovering a whole
Yeah.
new kind of world there. Because I did when I was over doing the Discworld games,
Hmm.
like I completed the work, but they wanted me on site in case they need something more. So I really didn't have that much to do. So I spent it doing stuff. And where I was living, it was right next to where the Royal Shakespeare Company were doing their fight choreography classes. So
Mm.
I just oh, I kind of scammed their company and said, look, you might be doing fight stuff. Maybe I should do this course. I will pay for that for you. All right. So I'm there. And I've seen one of the guys who taught me, I've seen he's got like a YouTube channel. He's one of the guys that like, um, what's it called? Gladiator or something like that, where he's like teaches. Oh, I've trained with him. But yeah, so I like did fight choreography one.
Mhm.
God, I'm still here. All right. I'll do the next course, fight choreography two. like choreography 3, you know. And so as I've seen some of the Indian stuff, I got the chance at Katori we had some guys who did a Rajput martial art turn up, but also some Sikhs turn up
Mhm.
who have their martial arts. So I got to train with them, and they had this incredible kind of, it's this kind of almost dance like system they had, and I can see that coming through in some of the Bollywood stuff. It's like some of the weird, spectacular spinning stuff. Like, oh, don't do that. So actually, check out an Indian martial arts channel on YouTube. It's like that's actually what they do. I don't
Yeah.
get the practicality of it, but this is in their stuff. Um, but I'd love to work with some. I've written a
Yeah.
lot for. I've been trying to get my own movies made for a long time. I've been in
Mhm.
a partnership with some people for ages, so I'm, still hoping something happens
Hoping.
there. I get regular contact from them. Oh, we just need 2 more signatures. One more
Yeah.
signature, half a signature. Oh, for God's sakes!
Oh.
But still hoping. And there's a series that I've been trying to get up for ages, and which is called Spirit Hunters. Which a
Yeah.
lot of the stuff I do and a lot of the books I do, they are the role-playing game campaign you wish you were playing in,
Okay.
and that's what Spirit Hunters. And basically, a group of people who decide, let's be professional monster hunters, but at the core of it is this incredibly untrustworthy fox spirit, and she was just so much fun. The first book I novelized these, I
Mhm.
novelized some of them. There's like 100 of these written, but the first episode, you've got this samurai who's the perfect erudite samurai who's going on for this tournament, and he's there walking along, and he comes into like a kind of a bit of a area that's a bit laid waste. There's no one out in the fields, everything's overgrown, and there's this kind of reclining Buddha with its palm out as he gets to a field. And there's like bits of feathers everywhere, and there's this female fox spirit kind of lounging back there, whatever, who wants to talk to. Oh yeah, hey! And it's like, no, don't look, don't make eye contact, don't make eye contact. But she's sort of there. Says, hey, have you seen it? What?
Oh
Huh?
god.
Take a look. Huh? Huh? Nothing. Overgrown fields, ruined houses, wild chickens. Wild? Well, they are by the time I'm through with them. But anyway, it's just all the stuff. And he ends up having to go adventuring with her, and it's full of stuff. Look, as a priestess, which is you shouldn't be eating meat. This is wrong. It says, look, I'll have you know, I have taken a solemn vow never to harm another living creature unless it's either tasty or annoying. Which I like, because that just covers everything in the universe. But so they're just wonderfully dodgy stuff. But
Oh, excellent. So yes, you've been, intermingling within so many medium and forms, and you've been traveling. You've had some games published, you've had some books published, you've had some, you've written some novels, but yet there's still, there's a lot of just creativity, just oozing
got to
out of you,
keep
for
going.
lack of a better term.
Got to start a
So,
new novel. Got to start a new game.
yeah.
Yeah. Oh dear.
So we come to one morning. I wake up and make myself a cup of coffee, as I do in the morning before my kids get up and they head off to school. And I'll hop on YouTube, or the news, usually YouTube, because the news has been absolutely atrocious for God knows how long. And I'm just scanning through something, and I see your first video. And I don't remember what you were reviewing. I think it was just a review. But it's like, okay, here's another person who's coming in to do another review channel. There's plenty of them out there. I'm one of them. But as I said before, one of the things that caught me, it's 4:30 in the morning. I'm drinking my coffee, and then hello, I'm like, I'm awake. Yes, tell me about this game. Whatever you're excited about, I'm excited too. I don't care. And thus began, the first episode of your channel, and it's grown. And I've told other people about it. Other people have discovered it, and so it's grown. And like I said, it's not just reviewing RPGs. It's pretty much just become like a wonderful little channel to get to know you and your personality, interspersed between these reviews of games and other anecdotes and history. You were involved in a lot of the history of the gaming world. As you said, you've made contacts with a lot of the what I guess you would call the old guard. You were front and center during that that particular event with the whole Barker thing, which and you I want to say your video was very helpful to a lot of people who gave them, focus and stability, because I think some people were looking towards you because of your relationship for guidance in that. And we can move on from there. We don't need to dive into that if you don't want to.
We
Uh,
can. Yeah.
but what, again, like so many different things, what brought up the I'm just going to go ahead and set the camera down, and everyone has the same story, but I'm going to set the camera down in front of me and do this video and put it on YouTube. So tell me what brought that about then?
Yeah, a strange combination of things. The first thing was, like, I really am very, very passionate about games, but as a games designer, I love the medium
Hmm.
and what can be done, and I love seeing what other people are doing. I'd seen a couple of review channels, and to my mind, it wasn't communicating the game. It often wasn't telling you what that designer was trying to get across to you. A game is trying to bring you into a world and bring you into some stories.
Hmm.
And I wasn't seeing that coming across. What's the journey this person's trying to get you into? But the other thing was, I often just wasn't seeing anything about the mechanics of the game, what might have driven those choices, and how that would draw you into the world. I was just seeing someone talk about whether they liked a thing, which is fine, but it's very
Hmm.
subjective. So I thought, why don't I do this? Um, I had sort of come out as trans a couple of years earlier, which had been,
Hmm.
a difficult transition. Okay, so transing, you will lose 99% of every person that ever called you friend.
Mm.
Not joking, they'll go. Your family will go, your friends will go, your games groups will go. That's it, you'll be alone. A couple of people stuck with me, and that was, some gamers, but I wasn't seeing any representation of kind of trans voices out there in gaming.
Hmm.
It was, and exactly at this time, there seemed to be a movement of angry old white bastards trying to basically plant a flag and say, "This is all ours." No
Hmm.
one who isn't, no one who isn't a crazed right winger who hates women and gay people, they never have and never will play this. It's like, well, hang on, my
Yeah.
games group from the 70s, like, was full of kind of gay and alternative and intriguing people, and we were always there.
Yeah.
We were always there. There was always me. There was always Janelle.
Hmm.
We were the starting voices. I actually ended up doing a video on this. It's like,
Yeah.
no, we were here. That stuff you guys fetishize, we did it. So it's a
Yeah.
little bit like, a part of me is inside you. But the and so the kind of funny bit is, so I've had a series of life disasters.
Hmm.
Working on the Discworld game, I didn't get paid for that. I
Mm.
spent a couple of years working, and essentially the company did a runner and left us all having worked for a couple of years on the basis that there'd be like, you'd get a tiny bit of survival money, and then there'd be a payout at the end. So everyone's got mortgages and things, but they've had to arrange with the bank to you'll take interest on the mortgage, but I can't pay you my monthly. But at the end, I'll go back and pay what I own. We didn't get paid, so I lost my house and everything. And then this has happened to me like multiple times. I ended up uh, having to sort of move, and then I had family. I had family pull a scam on me, so I lost the next house that I'd built up and recovered. So,
Mm.
two losses. Then I had a massive marriage collapse, and you know, followed by cancer, followed by, so it
Yeah.
has been a series of absolute disasters. So I'm currently living with my two people from my games group who stuck with me through thick and thin. I'm living in their stockroom. One of them makes plushy toys for a living. So that
Oh.
behind me, that is Mount Plushmore. Um, Essentially, it is a massive pile of cuddly toy animals behind me, and if anyone sneezes, it's going to be like a tsunami. It'll be like it'll be a triple size event. Meow, 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 meow. Somebody close that hatch. Now get Cyrano Jones. But yeah, so destitute. I ended up on the doll,
Hmm.
but the Australian doll has kind of a little thing where they'll essentially stop harassing you if you try and set up an enterprise. So I said, all right, I'll set up a YouTube channel. And they like to say, "Oh, YouTube, people make millions of dollars off YouTube. That's a great enterprise." It's like, "Oh yeah, I'll have 1 million subscribers in no time."
Sure.
Sure. But at least got them off my back. So I launched into doing it, and I've got no resources. So it was like, all right, what have we got?
Hmm.
Well, we got me, and we got what games I've got here, and well, let's download let's download a free video editor. Support crew.
Hmm.
Well, here he is,
Yep.
Mr. Snoots. And it's my friend has made me a number of little cuddly toy animal companions
Hmm.
who appear at the end of the videos.
Yes.
So I have a head of security, complete with a thagomizer. But that was it. So we started. Initially, I thought I'll try doing some history stuff as well as
Hmm.
games, and the history stuff wasn't really getting much engagement. I'm going to do some more, but I'd like to do that with more of a budget because I'd like to get on some interesting sites. So there's stuff here in Australia, for instance. Australia is very, very good at hiding the history of our First Nations people.
Hmm.
All Australian history was written by a bunch of angry old white bastards who just didn't um, cover the natives. But as I did research, I found stuff about Perth right here, a very interesting interactions between the early colonists and the native people, and some named native people and what they did and what happened in their lives and so on. And it's like, so I'd like to do some stuff on that, and I can get to those locations. I just need a boat and need to dodge some need to dodge some wildlife people who rightfully want to keep me off some islands because you might die there due to the
Yeah.
tiger snake population. But that's okay. I grew up with those things. Literally, there's one you just say, "It's just don't go here. You'll be bitten and die." It's like, there'll be 10 square feet that's snake free, I'm sure. But yeah, there's lots of other ones. So I filmed a couple, but the games have been like a mainstay. But those books that I said I read back when
Hmm.
I first started gaming, that's kind of been a driving influence. The people that wrote those books loved games and gaming and wanted you to see why that's kind of a worthy love and wanted you to understand. So I
Hmm.
kind of want to keep that legacy going. I want you to love gaming, and I want you to understand why I'm in it and why you should be in it as well. And
Yeah.
here's these amazing pieces of imagination and work that people do. Let's celebrate it together.
Yeah. No, it's, I mean, the variety that you go through is astounding. I mean, you start off with a lot of some of the older games, and then you work your way through some newer games and interwoven between different settings and genres. And then you move, you've brought in miniature gaming too, which is another, passion of yours in regards to gaming. But one of the things that I applaud you about is kind of what you said before. The a lot of game reviewers don't really tell you about the game. They tell you their opinion of it, but they're not really giving you an idea of what the game is or about. And I do feel like what I tend to do, if there's a particular video that you have done a game about, and people want to know what it's like, I'll recommend it because it's there. It's there within the video. It's a treasure trove of people who want to branch out, especially with the whole OGL thing. People are looking who wanted to move away from WotC and the whole D&D shenanigans. They're like, we want to try new stuff. Well, let's make let's make this an opportunity. And then people such as yourself who have these things, like, I'm curious about barbarians of Lemuria. Do you know what it's like? Well, I could sit here and tell you about it for an hour and a half, and you probably won't be too clear of what it is. Whereas you have a 13-minute video, and within that 13-minute video, most people who will watch it will go, that sounds interesting, or that doesn't sound like it's for me. But it seems like something that people can make an educated decision on based upon that. And and it's just, and I'm scrolling through it right now, and I've forgotten. I mean, you've been doing it for over 2 years now, and I'm looking at some of these games like, yeah, there's no shortage
Yeah, and I'm
of them
also
all.
trying to do like the history of gaming in
Hmm.
there. So there are some old games that games just moved on and they stopped being played. There are
Hmm.
some old original games which have got really good bones, as in these things are still playable. It's just people sort of forgot. So I'm sort of bringing them
Hmm.
back out into the limelight.
Yeah.
but also the history of gaming. It's like, so things like Brownstein, the first actual role-playing game, and so it's like this is something people who are interested in role-playing games should
Yeah.
know about. So let's bring this out and bring it back out from obscurity, and hey, you can get this. Thank you, drive through
Right.
RPG.com. I do like board games. I do everything, kind of everything tabletop,
Hmm.
and it's been nice. And it's nice, people are sending me games to review now, which is nice as people get something out, because small indie publishers, we can't afford advertising. It's only like channels like, mine and
Hmm.
yours or whatever, where anyone will hear about it. So like, can I send you this review? Hell yeah, that's kind of what it's for. It's like, let people know that you've got a game out and this is what it does. um and that's been good. I also started splicing it with just anecdotes. I just wanted to tell
Yes.
funny stories about gaming and about life, and I've lived a strange and extraordinary life. So let's put some of the funny incidents up there. Someone also said, "Oh, like I was telling stories about someone involved in gaming. Oh, but this guy went on and these horrible things happened to him." No, 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 no.
Mm-mm.
This is about the good stuff. Someone's tragic stories are theirs to tell. Okay,
Yeah.
that's only if they want it told, and it has to be told their way.
Right.
I'll tell the funny ones because that was something we all shared, and
Right.
that's something I'm going to do. And I do keep trying to. I've met, like all gamers, we've met raging idiots in our time, and these people deserve preserving as well. But I try and make it quite clear that I too am one of these people, like all
Yes.
gamers. So it's like I've done my series of absolute absurdities, and here they are. So I think I just put one anecdote out about me blissfully strolling through top secret security on all sorts of military bases for years in different places, and just security finally saying, "Who are you?" It's like, well, I'm the guy that comes on the site and like does stuff.
Oh.
Like, how long you been doing this? Oh, 18
Oh yeah.
months, 2 years.
It's it's crazy. I mean, again, as an IT person, I'm a contractor. I'm self-employed, so I've done a lot of military contracts and whatnot. But it's amazing how all I have to do is just show up, and you see it in the films. They flip through the paperwork, they look for your ID. No, you show up and like, who are you? It's like, I'm here to go to base 102 to work on some printers. Like, all right, go on.
Yeah,
And just like
quick, do a retinal scan. Leave a
right.
tissue sample. No, it's like, hi, I'm here for the thing. Okay, I
Yeah.
was like I said, fast talking storytelling. I was over
Hmm.
in the USA for an extended kind of visit, and
Hmm.
someone had a job that they could they needed done. It was basically a security white hat. They needed people to bust security on places and then give a report on how you did it. Now, I've been very good at doing this kind of thing for many years, but it was all full of this stuff. But there was an American Green Beret military base, and there was a charming major in charge, and he just wanted to make sure his security team was up. So he asked us if we could come and do this, and that was
Hmm.
one of the funniest weekends of my life, because there were rules they've been told, like they can't really touch you. The military police can kind of stop you from going anywhere, but they have to get civilian police to come and take you in custody and these sorts of things. And so they want to know: were you treated respectfully? Were you treated politely? How long did it take people to respond to you being in these areas where you're definitely not allowed to go, and so on? And they just ensured absolute mayhem as you just let these guys. I'm sure they're very fit young leopards and able of wrestling tigers to the ground or whatever, but
Hmm.
facing role-playing gamers with the kind of
Yeah.
stuff role-playing gamers do, they were absolutely helpless. And it got down to like people turning up in Pizza Hut delivery uniforms with a Pizza Hut sticker inside the car and a whole bunch of boxes. I got a delivery for headquarters. Okay, through you go. And you can see this major in the background,
Yep.
like, no! And I just drive past him. Hey, it's like, oh God, no. It's just again and again and again. It's like, yeah. So
Oh.
people doing role playing game scenarios. Oh, we're doing Super Spies 007 or whatever. We're gonna have to lower ourselves into past the motion sensors. Don't touch anything. It's like, yeah, I could just try walking in.
Yeah.
Candygram for Mongo. Okay, through you go. But
Oh.
they've been a joy to share. You always get those wonderful gamers too. Like there's a kid we knew called Derek who stars in a few of my things, and he was someone.
Mhm.
I was at a con, and he was that kid that no one wanted to talk to, but I will, and friend for life there. But he was that one. There was a D&D tournament, and the thing was, there was a terrible plague racking this village. And somewhere at the top of this mountain, there is the Oracle, and the Oracle knows the true cure to this plague. He's the only one, so you must go and you must ask the Oracle. But the Oracle will answer one question only. So through the course of this convention, each day these people are playing. They got to climb the mountain. They're fighting monsters. They're battling through the elements. Like one person dies, 2, 3, 4, and gets to the last 3, like 2 hit points left, clawing forward, and then they reach the top of the mountain, and there's silence and peace. And in front of them, there's like this kind of little Greek kind of temple, and sitting in it on a mat, there's this old man in white robes with a long beard in lotus position. Oh, so they stumble up to him, and Derek's the one that immediately pushes forward and says, "Hi, what? Are you the Oracle?" The Oracle opens his eyes and says, "Yes, I am," and goes back. And like, no! Now everyone has to go back down the mountain and start again. So the fact that these people exist in our community, I think, needs to be celebrated. As
Yes, absolutely.
We're the smartest. We're the best.
Well,
I assure you. Although I do
oh,
have to say, like,
mhm,
when I joined the Army Reserve, I had grown up amongst these war gamers, and so
yeah,
Evan's an expert in history, tactical experts, very clever role-playing gamers full of ideas. You get into the army, and that was my first encounter with actual idiots. Now, bear in mind, the Australian Army isn't the American Army. You
mhm.
have to pass an intelligence test to get in. And
Absurd.
I was meeting people who, like, honestly, okay, day one, you're sitting there, here's a military compass. It's divided into 3,600 radians, not 360 degrees, because we need a slightly finer thing. To
Yeah.
do a back bearing, diddly-do, you do this and just subtract 1,800 from the thing. So, for instance, if this thing is at, let's say 3,200 radians, what would be the back bearing? All right, you subtract 1,600 from that and give it to, and it's like you find you're the only person in the class that can answer it. And it's like, oh God.
Over here where it's like, do I get my gun? It's soon, please. Yeah, no, that's wow. I mean,
And I mean, I've been due to various factors. I've been seeing a psychologist lately for things, but you
mhm,
get that personality test, and they just said, "Oh, you're the highly intuitive, extroverted, feelings and whatever." But then they found you were like, I was in the army. Many trans people actually hyper masculinized by doing like lots of military things. You
mm,
probably should never. I get people making threats of violence all the time. That's a very bad career choice for them. But yeah, you do these exercises with particularly American troops because they had a charming trust,
uh-huh.
and you just do things like get an electric toothbrush that has batteries in the handle but has a cord and a plug. But when it comes time to bivvy down for the night, everyone's got their hoodie sitting up and everything, and you walk up to a tree and just jam the 2 metal tines into the tree bark and then start doing your teeth, and you get absolute silence. These American troops are staring at you, and like you'd see some sergeant, see, that's what we need you people to do. These guys are the real bushmen. See, there's fluids going up and down trees, so there's kind of piezoelectric electricity, and these guys know that they can draw on these natural resources, and that's what we need you to listen. You get your own sergeant major looking at you, it's like, you total bastard. It's like, what? It's like, which
Oh,
is kind of, oh dear. Yeah, you kind of leave that environment before you do some real harm to someone.
I would imagine so. Yeah.
Oh God.
Oh, well,
But yeah, I'm still going.
fantastic. I mean, so um,
I've got a
again,
new novel coming out soon.
yes. Oh, you do.
Yeah,
You do. What's it?
should be a couple of weeks. It's called Dungeoneers.
Okay.
So it's the book I probably would have been writing for official Dungeons and Dragons if they still commissioned those things.
Okay.
So because people had a hard time with COVID and whatever. So I wanted to do a joyous adventure that's and a game for gamers. This is the role playing campaign you wish you were having.
Mm-hmm.
So hopefully people will like that. But it's very inclusive the way we used to play. So
Yeah.
um, there's a centaur. Not I despise this thing where you got to take these official races. Why?
Yeah.
Go a centaur. Go a lizard person. Go something. I don't know.
Why not? Yeah, mix it up. Mix it up.
Mix it up. Have some fun. So that's coming out soon. I've got a new
on
publisher at
on
last.
Lulu.
So.
Is that where it's coming out, or is it coming out somewhere else?
It'll be out on Amazon. It's coming
Oh,
out via
excellent.
Perceptions Press.
Okay.
And they did my last book, which was my God, I forgot the name of my last book. Earthkin.
What was it called?
Earthkin.
Okay.
So yeah, Perceptions Press are they seem to be a nice little company. We've worked together well, so we got that one out, and I've been self-publishing for a while, so it's nice to have a publisher back in my corner a bit. Yeah, we'll see how that goes. I think that the cover's there, the book's there. I'm hoping that now translates to and it's out. But it'll be a joy to show that. So there's again, it's good. It's good D&D the way it is done. 101 uses for a long expandable pole, and why you should always adventure with a mirror on a stick, because you.
Oh yes, no. I've started running games for my son and his friends. They actually have a role playing club at their high school, which is nice. And but when they were little, started running a lot of things, and they would go through the list of things. It's like, why do I need a mirror, Daddy? Why would I spend money on that? You'll find out soon enough. Yeah.
I need you to go watch Saving Private Ryan. There's a scene where they like stick this thing to a bayonet, and she says, and you'll say, why didn't they just take one on a stick? It's like, yeah, myself. I went to a miniatures club, and it was an open, it was school holiday, so they had teenagers there, and someone's done a great display game. It's an Aztec temple, and there's velociraptors on the table, and you've got kind of Indiana Jones style characters. They've got to go in and seize the gem, and there's these older gamers playing like Napoleonics next to them, but one of these kids is playing the game, and you've each got a thing you can do. So one of them's got the gem. The umpire points and says, all right, what's your action, player number one? Player number one says, I'm going to fire my last shot from my revolver at the incoming velociraptors. Okay, roll to see if you hit or whatever. Turns to the second one. What are you doing? Says, have I got the gem? Yeah. I fire my last shot from my revolver at my friend's leg. What? And then I'm running that way. And and just leaving him for the velociraptors. And Napoleonic player puts down his dice, comes over, throws his arms around this kid and turns around to everyone. Everyone, this is my son. Today, my son is a gamer.
Oh,
I love
my.
this. I love this community so hard.
Oh yeah.